Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. When an alien race recreates monsters from the video games of the 1980s to destroy the planet, a group of the best gamers of the time come together to defeat the aliens. Today we will recap the story of the movie, Pixels from 2015. With the recent success of arcades, in 1982 an organization decides to hold a World Arcade Championship, where young people from all over the United States will compete to see who is the best, and as a reward, besides a sum of money, the one who shows himself superior to the others will enter the Guinness Book as the best arcade player in the world, and will have a recording of his gameplay launched into space by a NASA space probe, so that even the aliens can see the level of skill of the winner. Among the young people who are participating, young Brenner is one of those who stands out the most, because even though he has not practiced much, he can understand the movement pattern of the characters, and in this way he is able to break records in every game. With the awards announced, each of the competitors goes to one of the machines to try to get as many points as possible and become the champion, but after hours of competition, two players tie. With 259 points on Pac-Man, a rather unlikable boy named Eddie goes through to the grand final round, and besides him, with 259 points on Galaga, Brenner becomes the new record holder and also goes through to the final. Now in the final match, the judges decide that the tiebreaker will be a game of Donkey Kong. When the game starts, Brenner takes the lead in the first levels and reaches an incredible 800,000 points, much higher than his opponent, but when they reach level 20, Eddie adjusts his glasses to concentrate and gets closer and closer to Brenner, until at level 22 he finally manages to overcome his rival and win. According to Eddie himself, after level 20 in Donkey Kong, the barrels start coming in a totally random way, that is, there is no longer the pattern that Brenner had learned, and that is why he lost. Saddened by his defeat, Brenner leaves the stage while Eddie tries to humiliate him, but his friend Rupert goes after the boy to try to comfort him. 33 years after the big championship, Rupert became the president with the highest rejection rate in the history of the United States, while Brenner stopped playing video games and became a not very successful electronics installer. While Brenner is doing another one of his jobs at the house of a colonel named Violet, at the Guam Air Base an explosion happens out of nowhere, turning the entire wall of the place into blocks of pixels the size of bricks. After the attack, one of the soldiers goes outside to try to understand what exactly is happening, but as soon as he leaves the building a flash appears from the sky and begins to transform his body into several pixels floating towards a ship. In Washington, D.C., Brenner finishes installing the equipment in Violet's house when he receives an urgent call from President Rupert summoning him to the White House as a matter of urgency. When he arrives at the Oval Office, Rupert tells him about the attack on the military base and says that he will need his help to find out who attacked. Not quite understanding how he could be useful, Brenner watches the recording of the attack and immediately realizes why Rupert called him. The attack was actually a Galaga match, that same match that got him to the championship final in '82. With this new information, Brenner goes to the National Security Council meeting room, and while the marshals and admirals are trying to put the blame on Iran or Russia, he explains everything he has found out about the attack in the game, but is ridiculed and thrown out by the other people in the room, including Violet herself. After being humiliated, Brenner is driving home in his extremely stylish van when a lunatic appears at the back of the vehicle, and out of reflex he ends up punching him right in the face, knocking the man out of the van. Thinking he was some kind of thief, Brenner gets out of the car with a baseball bat and begins to confront the stranger, who is actually Ludlow, an old childhood friend of his who is a total freak he met in the arcade. According to Ludlow, he's been in the van since early because he found out some super important information about the attack on Guam, and curious, Brenner agrees to go to his house to hear what he has to say. However, when he arrives at the place, Brenner immediately regrets it when he realizes that Ludlow has become a complete conspiracy nut and that he is still totally smitten with Lady Lisa, the protagonist of a game from the 1980s called Dojo Quest. Anyway, after showing what a 40-year-old weirdo he is, Ludlow tells how he hacked into the American government system and thus managed to find out about the attack on Guam, immediately formulating yet another one of his theories. According to him, some extraterrestrial life form found the recording of that '82 championship that NASA sent into space, and for some reason they sent real versions of the games to attack humans. After coming up with this theory, Ludlow spent hours on the internet searching for some kind of extraterrestrial message, but since he couldn't find anything, he gave up and watched a TV show to distract himself. But since he is a complete lunatic, Ludlow still uses VHS, thinking that the government wants to spy on him through the TV converter. Just as he put the tape into the VCR, a high-frequency transmission corrupted the recording and overwrote the data, replacing part of the episode with a recording of an alien in human form saying that they found the recording and accepted the challenge. The aliens are crazier than Ludlow himself, and have taken the championship footage as a challenge to a competition for both planets. With that said, the aliens explain the rules of the competition. The aliens and humans will compete in real versions of the classic games until one of the two races gets 3 wins and wins the competition, so the attack on Guam was the first game and the humans already started losing. Finally, one of the aliens who took the form of Madonna says that with each victory the races are entitled to a trophy, which in this case was that abducted military man, and with all the rules explained, the aliens move on to coordinate the next challenge. With this information in hand, Brenner and Ludlow go to President Rupert to show him the recording saying that the coordinates point north of India, so he should mobilize his troops there as soon as possible to try to win the second game, but Rupert thinks this is ridiculous and says he can't mobilize the army based only on this crazy theory about games from the 80s, but this is a big mistake. In India, a man takes his girlfriend to the Taj Mahal and while they watch the scenery, he sets his cell phone to record while he proposes to her, but during the proposal some strange objects start to completely destroy the construction, turning one of the 7 wonders of the world into nothing but a pile of pixels. As soon as he realizes what is happening, he takes out his cell phone and starts recording himself in the middle of the attack, but thanks to this ingenious attitude he ends up being chosen as the second trophy and has his entire body transformed into pixels, leaving only his cell phone to tell the story. After this attack, the president finally realizes that this is really real and takes the two of them to the National Security Headquarters where Violet shows him that her team has already managed to develop a photon weapon that is used to disintegrate the pixels. In addition, the government has assembled a task force with the best soldiers from all over the country to participate in the third challenge, but all the training they have had so far is worthless for this competition and because of this they begin to train in all possible types of arcades with the help of Ludlow and Brenner. The next day, the aliens send another message notifying them of the third challenge that will take place in London, and as soon as they arrive at the field the aliens have chosen, the military push the civilians aside and begin preparing for the match. This time the chosen game is Centipede. From Atari, in this arcade, a giant centipede begins to descend from the sky and the player's goal is to shoot the creature's head to eliminate it, but if they hit any part other than the head, the centipede will multiply. Although they are all military trained, none of them know the rules of this game, and so they end up hitting the light shots at various parts of the centipede, causing it to multiply more and more until the point where one of the centipedes manages to reach the ground and bite a sergeant, causing his body to turn into a heap of pixels. Knowing that if he keeps this up they will lose the game, Brenner takes the photon gun from one of the soldiers and starts shooting at the centipedes, hitting several head shots in a row until he finally manages to eliminate all the level 1 creatures. With all monsters finished, the pixel mushrooms begin to change color signaling that level 2 is about to begin. Knowing that things are going to get tougher now and that he can't handle it alone, Brenner calls Ludlow to help him since he was also a great player in the old days. Once level 2 gets underway, the nerdy duo begin eliminating all the centipedes in their path, scoring a multitude of points while the military stands by and watches helplessly. But suddenly one of the creatures manages to escape and runs toward a commercial building, forcing Brenner to chase it down before this low-resolution mutant centipede destroys the entire city. During the escape, the creature breaks into an old woman's apartment and jumps from a height of about 8 stories in the direction of a young boy, but Brenner manages to eliminate the bugged alien in midair. With this challenge over, the military and the president go to a bar to celebrate when the aliens transmit one more message, but this time only to congratulate the humans and give them Duck Hunt's little dog as a trophy, and ask them to get ready for the next round. Thinking of getting more reinforcements to help, Ludlow remembers that despite being a jerk, Eddie was also a great player and might be able to help, and even against Brenner's wishes, they decide to recruit him to the team of players. Not knowing where he is exactly, Rupert uses his intelligence units who discover that he has been in prison for several years for tax fraud. With this information, they send a presidential entourage straight to the prison where Eddie is to try to convince him to help, but the demented man just keeps insulting Brenner and bragging about his championship victory. Frustrated by Eddie's nonsense, Brenner turns his back to leave, but Rupert convinces him to stay. With tempers calmer, Rupert begins a negotiation saying that if he is willing to help he will have his sentence drastically reduced, but Eddie rejects and begins to make a lot of completely crazy demands, such as a private island with his name on it, a military helicopter, and several other bizarre things, but in the end he settles for just his freedom. As soon as they finish negotiating, the aliens send them the location of the next round, which will be in New York, and now with the 80s esports team complete, they immediately head there. Still not knowing what the next challenge will be, the group arrives in the city totally unprepared, but one of the city cops says he saw a giant Pac-Man falling from the sky. With this information, Colonel Violet tells her men to prepare some cars loaded with photons to function as the ghosts in the game, so they only need to pull over Pac-Man 3 times and game over. But since in the original game there are 4 ghosts and they only have 3 players, the government contacts Toru Iwatani, the creator of Pac-Man himself, to become Inky, the 4th ghost. With everything ready to go, they go to the middle of the city where they discover that Pac-Man is actually the villain who is always devouring everything in sight, and refusing to accept that his creation is evil. Professor Iwatani gets out of the car and tries to talk to Pac-Man, treating him like a son, but the low-resolution ball refuses to listen and eats the hand of his own creator, turning him into a pile of pixels. Since Pac-Man is always faster than the ghosts, they know that just running after him won't do any good, so if they want to win they will have to find a way to corner this pixelated acorn. From her monitor, Violet sees the target's trajectory and tries to get them to corner the Pac-Man, but suddenly she notices something strange on the monitor. Eddie's ghost gets extremely fast just out of nowhere, practically teleporting in front of the Pac-Man and getting the first point. At the start of the next round, a new Pac-Man appears at a random spot on the map, and following Violet's instructions, the trio manages to corner him with ease, but just as they are about to eliminate him, Pac-Man eats one of the pills that allows him to eat any of the ghosts for the next 10 seconds. Knowing this, Eddie and Brenner put the car in reverse and start to run away as fast as possible, but Ludlow falls behind and has half the car devoured by the big yellow one, and unable to continue running like this, he stops the car in the middle of the street and jumps out just as Pac-Man eats the ghost. Not satisfied, Pac-Man turns around and starts chasing Ludlow, who tries to escape on foot. But Eddie comes out of nowhere once again and manages to eliminate Pac-Man, scoring the second point for the humans. Now with only 2 ghosts left, the third Pac-Man appears and once again begins to flee while being chased by the 2 cars, but on one of the turns in the city, Eddie speeds up too fast and cannot brake in time, ending up in the Hudson River with car and everything. With only 1 ghost remaining, Pac-Man starts running towards another of the pills, but instead of desperately trying to escape, Brenner starts driving backwards, luring Pac-Man into a parking lot. In this way, when the 10 seconds pass and the effect of the pill has worn off, the 2 are in midair, and so Pac-Man can't get away and ends up crashing head-on into the ghost, losing the match. That way, Brenner finally defeats the third Pac-Man and ends the game, getting another victory and also another trophy for the humans. Q. Bert. After this achievement, President Rupper's popular approval has more than tripled, and to celebrate he starts to prepare another party, even though he knows that the next challenge could begin at any moment. But when the aliens contact him, instead of giving him the coordinates of the next challenge, they say that the humans have broken the rules and have therefore been automatically defeated, which means that in 12 hours the aliens will begin the total destruction of our planet. In the midst of all the panic, Eddie takes the opportunity to escape, but is confronted by Matt, Violet's son, halfway there. According to the boy, the cops found Eddie's glasses in the river after the Pac-Man game and asked him to return them to their owner, but while looking at the glasses, Matt found the code for super speed on the lenses, which means that Eddie used this cheat both in the Pac-Man game in New York and in the Donkey Kong game in the 1982 championship. With his secret revealed, Eddie takes the glasses back and walks away, leaving Matt completely alone to be abducted by the aliens as the third trophy. After the party, Violet remembers that Q. Bert is the same species as the aliens and asks if it is possible to save her son in any way. But he replies that it is too late now and that the mothership is already preparing millions of video game warriors to destroy the planet. Determined to save her son, Violet plans to storm the ship and try to stop them somehow, but since the National Guard is blaming them for everything that has happened, they now no longer have access to the photon cannons. The next morning, the aliens' attack begins at the cities, destroyed by thousands of classic game characters. Amidst of all this chaos, Brenner, Ludlow and Violet try to be abducted by the mothership, but before they can even get close to the spaceship, the Frogger Frog appears and jumps out to crush them, but President Rupert manages to save his friends by holding the leg of the frog using a crane claw. With one less enemy in the way, the president leads the trio to a van with some photon cannons so they can fight back, and with everyone properly armed, Brenner asks Ludlow to stay on the ground protecting the civilians while the rest of the group climbs into the mothership to try to stop the attack, but not before Violet shoots a Smurf just out of nowhere. In the midst of the chaos of the city, Ludlow finds a group of headstrong ninjas, attacking a school bus full of minors and manages to eliminate them without too much difficulty, but suddenly Lady Lisa comes out from behind the vehicle and now he must fight the character he has always loved. Ludlow realizes that he doesn't stand a chance against a warrior as powerful as she is and surrenders while declaring his love, but when she realizes that Ludlow really loves her, Lady Lisa gives up on eliminating him and decides to stay by his side until the end. On the other side of town, Brenner, Rupert, Violet and Q. Bert try to find a way out of being abducted by the mothership when suddenly a hologram of the hacker Max Headroom himself appears on the air saying that the leader of the aliens wants to challenge them personally and that if they can win, planet Earth will be saved once and for all. With that, one by one they enter the ship and immediately encounter the people who were taken as trophies next to the leader of the aliens transformed into a giant version of Donkey Kong. But the King Kong doesn't even give them time to say hello and soon starts the game by throwing an explosive barrel next to Q-Bert, who gets wet with fear. On the ground, Eddie decides to join the humans and goes back into battle to redeem himself, and now together with Ludlow and Lady Lisa, he starts to pulverize this bunch of badly rendered pixels. On the mothership, the quartet of protagonists run towards the top platform while Donkey Kong throws dozens of barrels to knock them down, but determined to save everyone, Brenner takes a sledgehammer and begins to destroy all the barrels that appear on the way. But when they are about to finish the game, Matt realizes that Q-Bert has been left behind and asks his mother to go get him. Violet then goes back to the middle of the burning platforms and throws Q-Bert up. But when it's her turn, the woman can't climb back up and it's Brenner who has to go back up to help her. After saving Violet, Brenner throws his sledgehammer and manages to finish the game once and for all when he hits the object right in the chest of Donkey Kong, who disassembles like little Tetris pieces. With the leader of the aliens defeated, all the other 8-bit warriors that were on Earth also begin to fall apart, and unfortunately for Ludlow, this also includes Lady Lisa. With everyone safe, the entire world population begins to celebrate peace while Eddie apologizes for cheating. But while everyone is happy, Ludlow is quite depressed about losing the woman of his life, but for some completely bizarre and grotesque reason, Q-Bert transforms himself into Lady Lisa to live happily ever after with Ludlow, having several little Q-Berts. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.